without further ado, here's Tom.
Hey guys, so my name's Tom. I was one of the 6 full-time mentors, Nick was the other. Those of us crazy enough to quit or suspend our jobs to go work on this project for the summer. A lot of you in this room are probably savvy enough to know that the term data science means different things to different people and nothing to a lot of people. What it means to us is people who know how to A, deal with data, and B, hack. Right, and those people have been useful in a lot of different fields. They've been useful in companies like Google and Facebook. They've been useful in finance. But there's not a whole lot of outlet for people who have those skills but want to apply them to, let's say, social good, to public policy, to problems that have a social dimension. And so the fact that there isn't really an outlet right now for that sort of thing was something that Matt Gee and Juan Velez have been concerned about for some time and wanted to see solved. And so about 6 months ago now, Raid Ghani, who was the chief data scientist of the Obama campaign, came and set up shop at U Chicago and was able to scrape together some resources, partly, in fact, mostly from the Eric and Wendy Schmidt Foundation, to start sort of digging away at this problem a little bit by setting up a summer fellowship program called Data Science for Social Good. So the goals here are threefold. First is to take people who aren't necessarily, don't have the full toolbox of what we think of as data science, who maybe are statisticians who don't know how to program that well, or programmers who aren't quite as up on their stats. Just kind of fill in that toolkit a little bit. And really, I have to say, like, training data scientists is something that we did exceptionally well this summer because we started off at a point where we oftentimes had no data. We didn't understand the problem. It was a little bit of a struggle at the very beginning, in a way that a lot of real-world problems are. And so we had a lot of people with great academic credentials coming into the program, but who had never really been thrown into a situation like this before, where they had to find their own way, to find a problem, to find the right data to solve it, and then actually start from scratch. So it wasn't on purpose that we started that way in a lot of cases, but the fact that we did turned out to be a really great training exercise. The second part of the goal was to introduce some of our partners to some possibilities. Because a lot of governments and nonprofits in particular are resource constrained, and because data scientists are hard to come by and often expensive, there just hasn't been a whole lot of data people working on social science problems, with the exception of institutions like Chapin Hall or the odd government with more resources dedicated to this than average, like the city of Chicago. For the most part, this is new to people. Having nerds who can analyze your data and program things for you and develop tools in the way that a lot of people in this room do is new. We wanted to help introduce people to this way of working and see if we could discover some possibilities. And then finally, our last goal was to try, in as much as we could in 12 weeks, to pick projects that really did have a social impact, even if they had to be fairly constrained in time. We wanted to do as much good as we could and produce results that were actually useful to society, and not just necessarily a paper that got published in an academic journal.
And so we kind of cheated at the first goal a little bit. So we didn't take people who didn't know how to program or didn't know statistics. We took like grad students or undergrads from quantitative and computational who already had some of these skills and had never had the opportunity to kind of apply them, because it's very hard to learn all those skills in 3 months. So instead we said, hey, let's pick people who already have some of that and give them the opportunity to learn to apply those skills through projects, right? And then same thing for the partners. So you've got governments and nonprofits that are interested in kind of analyzing data and having that guide their decisions. They've never really done it before, and we think that the best way to kind of help train people and show the social sector what's possible is just by actually doing projects. So that's how these things tie together.
Right. So how it happened was quickly. As I mentioned, Raid Ghani showed up here 6 months ago. The money showed up. All of a sudden, we had to make this thing happen. So we went out and we put out a call for applications for fellows, and we got an amazing response. Something like 580, I think, applicants, close enough to 600. And we we started scoping out projects for them to work on. I think we started out with about 25, give or take, potential projects that we narrowed down to about 12. We had about 3 months to throw this all together. So what we ended up with was a staff of people working in communications and organization and logistics, an organizing committee, 6 mentors, and roughly 40 fellows. This is most of them, along with our funder, Eric Schmidt, who's
He's like the Godfather.
That's right. If you looked at this, you might think that Ed was the guy.
Being the guy in the middle.
Yeah. Anyway, so as Juan mentioned, what we had mostly was people with academic experience. We had PhD level, postdoc, professional students. Nobody with a PhD, but people who were almost there. And each was roughly a third of the fellows. And then by degree, we had a lot of computer scientists, we had a few social scientists, and we had a few mathematicians and statisticians. And of course, physical sciences, which has a close place in my heart, because that's where I came from.
And I will say that mix of backgrounds was very deliberate. So we didn't want to just get computer science people who tend to be the people who do this kind of work the most, because people in social sciences have a much better understanding of kind of how society works, and that tended to be very useful. And then we wanted to throw the physicists a break. That's right. And it ended up being really wonderful because you had a whole room of people with totally different backgrounds, and everyone was kind of interested in what each other was about. And there were also a few fights over, stupid philosophies and so on. So that was entertaining.
We tried to get a good mix of Bayesians and frequentists. So the project areas that we started off with were healthcare, education, disaster relief, transportation, public safety, economic development, city services, and there were actually, and we tried to run the gamut a little bit. We wanted to touch on a lot of different things. We were somewhat limited in the fact that a lot of the really what you think of as big problems, like world hunger, right? Obviously, we weren't going to solve that in 12 weeks. And second of all, we don't. This is something I'm going to bring up again at the end. Is we had to work with partners who we had at least something of a relationship with from the beginning because of the short time period that we had to set this all up. So here are the partners that we actually chose to work with. The City of Chicago being one of them. A number of city organizations in here, including the Chicago Police, Cook County Sheriff, and Divvy Bikes this year, CTA, and then also we had some nonprofits, the Case Foundation, Ushahidi, which is an Africa-based nonprofit that does disaster response. It's the project that we worked on with them. They have a really interesting platform for working on things like that. Anyway, it's quite a mix. So I'm going to talk. Well, Juan, me, and hopefully Nick, put you on the spot here, put one of your projects in here, thinking maybe you might show up. We're going to just give a real quick overview of a few of the projects to give you a flavor of the kinds of things that we worked on. And then